Well, hello there. Welcome to the Obi Thorn Alliance. In today's live stream, we are starting off with what have you been watching? So, how's the movie watching going?
Yeah, it's good. I'm at 103, so it's kind of been a slow build up since I've hit the 100 number. In saying that, there's a lot of movies out there that I would like to see. I just haven't had the time, or they haven't came available on streaming yet. So there is a few ones out there. For instance, I'd like to go see Transformers 1. I would like to see The Wild Robot. I don't know if that's out yet, but we are going to be doing a trailer reaction of that today.
The Wild Robot, yes.
Yeah. And I'd also like to see
Speak No Evil.
I want to see that. That's not out yet. But in terms of movies that are out that I haven't been to see yet, I wanted to see It Ends With Us.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm still waiting to see that and haven't had a chance. So that's really looking forward to seeing that. Yeah. So what have you been watching?
I have seen two movies recently, Blink Twice and Beetlejuice, and also Bad Monkey, and also Only Murders in the Building Season 4. And we got a comment.
Hey, Cohen. I told my son to watch this. Say, hey, buddy.
Okay.
I'll take you to see Transformers in a few days. We got 4 viewers. I've seen quite a few people watching at the moment.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And also I've been watching Boy Swallows Universe, which we're talking about off camera. So nearly finished that. And I was saying I don't quite get the hype why people are going ballistic about that show. I think it's okay, but it's definitely not the best Australian show I've seen in a while. So, yeah. Is there anything you're excited about watching that's coming out soon?
Speak No Evil and Transformers 1.
Did you see the trailer to Speak No Evil over the weekend?
No, I haven't. I'm going in completely blind.
Okay, I think it looks really, really good, so I'm extremely excited about that. And yeah, we both want to see Transformers 1. So, yeah, I haven't been watching too much. So is there anything else I kind of got distracted when we read the comments. So what did you say you'd been watching?
Only Murders in the Building, Bad Monkeys, and Slow Horses Season 4.
How far into Bad Monkeys now?
Episode 7 coming this Wednesday.
How many is there in total?
10.
What do you think about watching it weekly?
It's fine.
Yeah. Do you think it's a show that is bingeable? I'm sure we'll talk about this later because it is a topic. Do you think it's a bingeable show or something that the weekly grind is okay?
I'll keep you suspense for it.
Okay, we'll chat about that later. I'm obviously a big fan of things coming out weekly. I kind of like being paused to wait and see how things go. So that's kind of cool. What else? You said you watched Slow Horses. I've never seen this show, but it's on Apple TV. Is that right? It's
worth watching.
I know you always talk about it. So is this the last season of it?
No, Season 5 it got renewed for because there's 5 books.
Okay, so that's a rarity for Apple. They like a 3-season show.
They do.
So 4 going to get a 5th. I did hear they were going to make another season of Ted Lasso.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so that kind of breaks this whole formula of Apple only doing 3-season shows. They're going to start to expand beyond that, which is cool. You're a big fan of Apple TV. You think their content's good and
the best.
I wouldn't say it's the best, but I think they do bring out good, unique content. Like, for instance, Fly Me to the Moon, even though that went to the cinemas, that's easily in the top 5 movies I've seen this year so far.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I think Apple TV do produce some stuff, good stuff, but then also a movie like The Instigators that came out was garbage. It's one of the worst movies I've seen all year. So very hit and miss when it comes to movies, but their TV shows are pretty good. I do need to get back into watching
Morning Wars.
No, not Morning Wars. I didn't finish that. The one with the stuff they put the chips in the brain that you like. It's got Adam Scott in it.
It's I can't remember.
I can't think of it, but like people go nuts for it, and I need to get back into watching that show. My wife's not interested in finishing off, but I do want to keep watching it because I believe season 2 is coming out of it. I wish I could think of what this movie was called. What it's called. Is it like something to like splitting thing? Severance. There we go. I knew it was like about severing something. Yeah, Severance. That's the one. So I would like to get back into seeing that. Have you? I think you were telling me about season 2 coming out of Severance at some point.
Yes, next year.
Still, because season 1 probably came out 2 years ago.
Yeah,
it's a long break between seasons. I'm guessing maybe something to do with the writer's strike.
Yes.
Okay, should we get into the trailer reaction, then we can start to get into a few of the other things we want to do today?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to do a trailer reaction of The Wild Robot, which is a cool-looking animated movie coming out. Let's add this to your screen. We'll chuck it on here on the main screen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really cool looking artwork.
I see trees of green and clouds of light, bright blessed day.
Yeah, I think it's like
What a wonderful world.
looks like it's not good.
I hear babies cry, I watch them grow, and they'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Very good.
Sometimes, to survive, we must become more than we were programmed to be.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
Looks amazing, beautiful.
I think it will be really good. It's like, I think it'd be probably one of those award-winning kind of. I know it's not an indie movie because it's by DreamWorks, but it'll be one of those ones that, you know, like niche that not everyone sees, but those that do say you got to see it. Kind of like a Spirit Away movie, and people like ballistic about that. I think that's probably what this movie's going to be like. From what I can gather, it looks like the robot crash lands to Earth by mistake.
Yeah.
And then
befriends the animals.
Yeah, and then maybe like a natural disaster or ice age or something occurs because you see them like running from flames. I'm not sure, but I think it'll be good. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Excitement level out of 10?
Oh, maybe like an 8. I'm not going to go any higher than that because it is an animated movie. I think it will be good, but it's something that I probably wouldn't rush to see if I didn't have a kid to go with me. If it wasn't, I would probably just wait till it came out to streaming. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to 8 as well. It looks beautiful. I think it'll be a solemn journey of discovery. But besides that, I don't think it'll be for everyone. And there will be, with not talking and things, it'll be more picturesque.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if obviously the target audience is children, whether they will like that, the lack of talking, or whether the talking isn't really that important to children when they watch shows. They just enjoy the pictures. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how it does, and wonder what it would have cost to make, because sometimes you think animation could be cheap, but then it depends on how fiddly it is, and that's like an interesting art style. So it's like, is it more expensive to do that type of art style, or would it be cheaper? So it's be intrigued to see what the budget is compared to what it can possibly make. So one of the movies you said you recently watched, which I've also seen, is Blink Twice.
Yes.
So I was talking to your mum on the way here, and she had a kind of an interesting view on it. She said she didn't dislike it and didn't love it, but it was it's a movie you'd watch again just to pick up on the things you missed. So be
Is that
intrigued.
me or her?
Well, that's what your mum said. So I guess I'm intrigued to see what you thought of the movie. So do you want to give a quick rundown of what the plot is of the movie?
So the plot is that this businessman is apologizing for something. He's saying sorry while the main character is on the toilet looking at this footage, and we don't know what for. And we kind of are suspicious because the movie starts off with this green lizard or green frog or something. And then she goes to walk, and then she ends up meeting Channing Tatum's character, and then the whole story evolves from there. But what is cool to do with this movie is that there's little Easter eggs going on for the plot. For example, they put perfume on themselves, and then you're thinking, oh, suspicious. And then there's little Easter eggs throughout the film that makes it very ingenious.
Yeah, so I guess a summary of the premise is that we've got a billionaire, Channing Tatum. He's decided to take himself out of the limelight, and he has this island. And he goes there and like parties on the island and invites exclusive VIP guests. And every year he has this charity ball, and these two main characters, they had met him the year before, and supposedly he'd commented on one of their nails and said, I like your nail art. So she was really obsessed with that, and she wanted to impress him again and meet him. So they work at the event, and she falls over and ends up being invited to his island along with other friends, and they're kind of having this fun time, and it's all a bit too fun and too happy. It's a bit strange, and then suddenly her friend disappears.
Stuff goes down,
and no one else but her remembers her friend even being there, and that kind of gets us on this journey of what's going on, people disappearing on the island, why can no one else remember her, who's in on this whole thing. Anything beyond that really becomes a spoiler, but it's that mystery of working out what is with this island. Is the island magical? Is something suspicious going on? Is she losing her mind? Are they all going to get murdered? You kind of go on this journey to work it out, and then it also involves flashbacks into how they got to that point. So I if you can't tell already, I really like the film, so I'm interested to see what kind of scores it ends up with. What would be your quick you lean towards liking the film or not liking the film?
It's probably, out of all the movies I've seen this year, to keep it short, it's one of the movies that I'm very mixed about. My critical reviewer brain is going, this is a very interesting movie, but my normal watching brain is going, I really love this movie.
It's a movie I definitely would like to see a second time. The ending's not overly satisfying, but it was, the journey and how they got there was cool. And I think watching it back a second time might kind of open up more things I didn't spot the first time. But beyond that, let's get into our scoring. Let's see how it goes. I've got an idea in my head where it might fall. So we'll see comparatively what the actual scoring is compared to what I'm thinking in my head I would give it. On my Letterboxd account at the moment, I've got it as my 12th favorite movie of the year out of 103. So if that gives any indication of where I think it might rank. So as always, we've got our 10 points where we give, oh, look at that, disappears, the green. We have 10, where am I? I've got 10 things that we give ratings on, and then that gives us our score out of 100. So the first is the plot and storytelling. What do you give the plot and storytelling out of Blink Twice?
This gets a well-deserved 8. I was very, I really love the storytelling when it comes to the Easter eggs, keeping you engaged. Not everything comes together, especially the ending, but get to that when it comes to the ending. The critical brain in me kind of goes, there are plot holes. I was hoping they weren't going to do the thing that they were going to do, because it's very cheap and it's kind of an easy thing to do. But when it comes to the plot, I think it's ingenious and very original and very unique.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think it was kind of predictable in what was going on, but that was fine. I probably would have rather they explained less, so then you kind of left there wondering, opposed to sometimes when they explain the plot line of a, like a supernatural or like a fantasy or a thriller movie, sometimes finding out what actually happened is less interesting than what you can come up with in your head. That would probably be my only downfall, but I would give it along the same lines of probably, I think an 8 as well. I don't think I could give it an 8.5. I think an 8 out of 10 is a pretty good score. It was a unique premise. I was gripped the whole way through, and even when you kind of knew what was going on, it was still entertaining. And I actually found the movie had lots of funny bits in it too. It also had quite a dark undertone, which even at the start of the film, it gives you a warning, basically saying if this has some triggering things in it, alluding to there being sexual violence. So like if this is not for you, then don't watch this movie, and here's some numbers you can call afterwards. So it was quite a dark movie in that sense, but it kind of ticked a lot of boxes. I was surprised some of the funny moments that were in it for a movie that's a thriller. So what do you give the cinematography? So we're talking visuals and sounds here.
This gets a well-deserved 9. I really liked the atmosphere. It keeps you really engaged and really I don't know, wondering what's going on. It's very weird. You kind of go, oh, is this even a good movie? And then when stuff goes down, it's like it really works. The filming, the cinematography. Yeah, this movie really does everything well when it comes to the cinematography.
Yeah, I think it visually looked good. It was simple, like, set pretty much in 2 locations. One was inside the event, and then pretty much the next 90% of the movie was set on this island where they didn't even really explore the island to show you whether it had mountains or beaches. They were just in this villa. So it was, for what it had to work with, it still visually looked good. It had this kind of timeless look to it. I don't know how to describe it, because they kind of, it's very like culty. They all had to wear these outfits that were given to them, these white outfits, and it's very strange. And all the cast was very glamorous, and so it was visually appealing but simple, which is interesting to do. I don't know if I could go as high as a 9. I'm thinking maybe a 7.5, just because I think it did well with what it had, but nothing spectacular. So I think for me that's a decent score. So that moves us to the directing. So here we're talking about kind of the pacing, the choice of when to have flashbacks, when not to, how to particularly with a thriller, when do they hold off the suspense and then give you the big reveal, or what kind of things they sprinkle along the way so that you can kind of get a guess of what's going on, or did they completely hide it from you? So it kind of encompasses all that. So how do you think the directing was of this film?
I'm going to give this a 7. I think when it comes to the mystery parts, like I said, the Easter eggs going through the movie, but once they choose to reveal what was going on, I found that a bit very cheap and easy. And then when it comes to how the director decided to end the movie, that was, I don't see why the director chose to end the movie like that. It was such a wasted opportunity and not a good ending. So a 7.
Yeah, I think the directing, I like the way they presented the different scenes and the way they ordered things, but I felt like the movie probably just had a little bit at the end that didn't need to be there. So without going to spoilers, I think if the movie kind of ended semi on a cliffhanger opposed to giving us the last little bit, I think it would have improved my experience of the film, and I would be more likely to watch it again. In saying that, though, the pacing was quite good. I was on the edge of my seat. Yes, they did kind of give away what was causing the mystery to occur, and you could pick it up kind of quickly. They didn't bother to explain it, which I actually think was a good thing, because I think if you explained it, you'd go, well, that's stupid, it's not possible, where sometimes their things are just left like, ooh, maybe this place is haunted, or maybe they're magical. I don't know. Sometimes that letting us work it out ourselves is a better option. So I like that they did that, but then they went on to add that little bit at the end of the film that I think was unnecessary. So from that, I'm going to probably give it higher than Jacob. I think it's a 7.5 because really, really solid job. Just if they cut the film a little bit shorter and left me suspenseful, even the possibility of there could have been a sequel left in that way, then that would have elevated to something higher, like an 8 or an 8.5. Next is experience and engagement. So we've kind of talked about what our experience was of this film, but to give it a solid score out of 10, how engaging and what was the experience of seeing this film, especially in cinemas?
This gets a 9.5. The thrill of watching it, but there were parts when the movie doesn't quite hit, but I was thrilled throughout the movie that it started okay, the middle was amazing, and then the ending dropped the ball. But overall, I had a good time. The critical brain kind of was, didn't like it as much, but I think I've come to the middle and go, Blink Twice is our original idea, and I think that's why I like it more, because it doesn't try to, tell a sequel. It's not a Marvel movie. It's just a good old original idea. So that's why with the experience, I loved it even more.
Yeah, I'm leaning the same. I'm going to give it a 9.5. Even though there is these plot holes in it and little faults to it, that didn't take away from the engagement whilst watching it. I was really looking forward to seeing this film, and then leaving it, I wasn't disappointed. It was interesting to see Channing Tatum play a villain in this role. It was interesting to see this ensemble cast, be it not all of them were megastars, but it was, an ensemble cast that kind of clicked. It had funny moments. It had jump scares in it, had lots of intense moments. It had you thinking. I really think it's a movie where the length, it kind of was over in the blink of an eye. I think it kept you in sense. And even the fact that I think the name itself is really clever. So, overall, I think the movie was clever and engaging. So I'm going to give it a 9.5. Moving on now to the point of difference, X factor, creativity. You've already mentioned that you think this film was quite creative and not like other films we've seen. So what would you give it out of 10 in terms of that?
A 10.
Yeah, a 10.
I like that it tried to do something different. It might not have succeeded in other people's eyes. Obviously, not everyone is going to see this movie because it does have sensitive materials. But for me, I've watched a lot of movies in general, and it was just a unique and fresh storytelling. So that's why it's X Factor. It gets a 10 because it's not a reboot or legendary sequel like Beetlejuice. It's a fresh perspective, and I loved that it took a chance.
I'm thinking along the same. I won't give it a 10. I'm going to give it a 9.5. I think it was the X factor was probably Channing Tatum being in there and seeing him play a different role. I think that would have brought a lot of people to the cinemas. I think its point of difference was it was different than the other thrillers out there. Generally, thrillers are more along the lines of being scared and people being murdered. Like there was people getting killed in that, but that wasn't the general fear of what's going to happen here. It's a bit different than that. I guess explain that would be spoilers, but there's definitely something different about it. And I think most people that will watch it will feel the same, that they took a risk, and I think it did work. It's probably not going to be a film that everyone's going to go out and see, but those that see it, I think, would probably recommend it. And again, it's a A24 studio film. They seem to be taking risks that others aren't, and I'm really liking that. I'm glad from someone that's seen 103 new movies this year.
And now the movie Civil War.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of A24 films, actually. There was one the other day that I saw that I didn't realize was an A24 film also. I reckon I've seen maybe 10 A24 films this year. They brought out
and this one's the best one?
No, apparently Iron Claw's an A24 film. So Iron Claw is my favorite film of the year. So that is so far. So that again shows how good A24 are doing. But the fact that this film, I've talked about this a lot of length with other people, that if you go to the cinemas 5 times a year, you're a casual watcher. This year you may have picked out that you're going to go see
Deadpool,
the Joker, Alien. I don't know. Obviously, you see your 5 favorite films. Your expectations are different than someone that's seen a lot of films, because if you've only seen 5 films and they're 5 blockbusters, anything that's not a blockbuster, you go, well, that's rubbish. But I've seen from the lowest budget films to the highest budget films, and often there's not too much difference between them. Like there's really maybe 10 films this year that I've seen that were mind blowing. The rest were kind of like, meh. Like, so where I'm going with this is this film, in comparison to, if you see 5 films, it might be the worst film you've seen. But if you've seen 100 films like me, there's 75 films worse than that I've seen this year, easily. So, as I said, it's my 12th favorite film. So there's more than that. There's like 88 films I've seen worse than that. So it might be, you may not think it's good if you've only seen blockbusters, but if you've seen lots of things, it's better than the rest of the, I wouldn't say garbage, but my expectations of a film are lower than others because I've seen so many films. And I think it is a good quality film that probably will get missed because a lot of people won't go see it because it's not a blockbuster. But compared to some of the other garbage out there, it's a lot better. So I think it has an X factor to it and a level of creativity that isn't just this same repeated formula that tried something different. And I think it's worth seeing. And I like to reward films that do that, take a risk and do something a bit different. Moves us on to the ending satisfaction. Already touched on, with both a bit iffy on the ending. So what are you going to give it out of 10? And will this really hurt its overall score?
A 5.
You're going to give it a 5? And why are you giving it a 5?
Unfortunately for me, I don't see why it ended the way it did. That's the main part of the movie that failed, in my opinion. But I guess you could say it kind of came full circle in a way. It kind of needed to end like that, but it's not a good ending, unfortunately. Yes.
Yeah, I'm thinking the ending for me is maybe even a 4, just because I think it had a good ending and then it went a bit further, and then the further bit they added was really unrealistic and kind of silly.
Yeah.
So I think they still could have had a bit more of an ending to it, but the one they chose was a bit weird. And it's not weird as in the fact of like, oh, I wish they didn't open this door. I wish this person survived. It's literally, we get the ending we want, and then it's like, a year later, this is what's happened. And it's like, we didn't need to know what happened a year since those events. It didn't improve the experience. I think it only made it kind of worse. So you probably could have given that a miss. So it's unsatisfactory in that sense. And also, if anything, I think maybe they could have explained, if you're going to give an ending, explain a bit more of what happened on the island. But instead, they didn't explain that, and they added this unnecessary kind of extra story. Maybe that's just to close the chapter, because you go, well, there's definitely not going to be a sequel now. What would the sequel be about? So maybe that's why they did it. So it was unsatisfactory, and that's probably the worst part of the film and it's not even the ending. It's like it's almost like an after credit scene. You'd say it wasn't an after credit scene, but it's something that could have been in an after credit scene, and you go, well, let's just choose not to ignore that. So this moves to attraction of the premise. So how attractive is this film to the average person out of 10? Is this, we talk about this thriller movie with Channing Tatum set on an island. Like, how many people would be attracted to this film?
I think it gets a 7 because Channing Tatum is quite hot at the moment, but not everyone is going to like a thriller movie, even though it has Channing Tatum in it. Not everyone likes Channing Tatum, but for me, it drew him. Channing Tatum is actually doing quite a lot of different roles at the moment, and he's probably my favorite actors of this year. So it definitely enticed me, but it won't entice everyone.
I'm thinking it's around a 6 because if you were to do any research on before going into it, the themes of it are quite dark. It talks about sexual assault, so that's going to rule out a large number of people. Obviously, it's not age appropriate as well for some people. People kind of like Channing Tatum in the funny role, so people that are only like him for that might go, well, I don't want to go see him play a villain. Like, that's not the Channing Tatum I like. Being a thriller, I think it's a hard movie to sell, but to people like us that like a unique product, it's an easy thing to sell because you go, this is like nothing else I've seen. Of course I want to go see that. But your average person will go, no, I just like the same. I'd rather go see, Fast and the Furious 12. I just like what I like. I don't want to venture outside the box too much. So I think it's a hard sell because of that. So I'm going to give it a 6, which doesn't reflect on the finishing product. It just reflects on how hard it would be to try and sell it to someone that hasn't seen it yet. What about the performances and the cast? So ensemble cast, got a few big actors in there. We've got, we'll talk about Beetlejuice. So from the original Beetlejuice, Alec Baldwin's wife that died, beats me her name. She was in it. I'm not going to embarrass myself and try and name the cast, but there's a few famous people from yesteryear, a couple of like second tier comedians, and then we did have the guy from the Sixth Sense, Haley Joel Osment. That's his name, yeah. And then obviously Channing Tatum's the big draw card. So stop deviating. Going back to that, so what do you give the performance and the casting of this movie?
This is mainly going to go towards Channing Tatum. I'm going to give it a 6. I personally thought Channing Tatum was outstanding, but everyone else didn't really get much to do. Like, it was a pretty easy acting performance. They basically drank the entire movie, and you could tell there was something more to him, and I guess you could argue he drank as well, but he got something more than, so a 6 for me.
This is probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. I think everyone's performances were solid, convincing. Those that were meant to be a bit psychotic did a really good job of it, particularly Channing Tatum. There was a lot of funny moments in it. Suspenseful. I think the casting was great because you had the mix of past stars, big stars, and then kind of rising stars. So I think it did really good. I think particularly the males that were in this film, they picked a good mix of guys that you're like, yep, they're the kind of guys that would probably get up to this sort of stuff that goes on this island. So I think they selected the cast really well, and I think they played their roles to perfection. So I loved it. So I'm going to give it a 9.5 for the performance and casting. I don't really know what more they could have done. And yes, you could pick different actors or actresses, but I think the ones they went with were really good. In particular, again, I'm not going to embarrass myself with the name, but she was in The Hitman with Glenn Powell. She's Hispanic of some sort. She's up and coming in Hollywood, like wild, obviously very, very attractive. She was a great additive to this movie because she is, on the up in Hollywood for sure. One, I can't remember her name. Two, I probably wouldn't be able to pronounce it. So 2 more categories left. That moves us to the recommendability to others. So how easily would you find this movie recommending to the average person, not just us who will go see everything and anything, but the average person?
This probably gets a 7 because I think people would always give things a go, but I think it's a hard sell, especially to females, because they would be triggered quite a lot. But some females would be like, oh, that's fine because it's only happening in the movie, but it's I could get it worth recommending, but definitely not to everyone.
Very similar to you. I think it is very recommendable, but will people take it up to another story? So it's hard to say, hey, you should watch this. This is all these things that go on. I think appeals to a very small number of people. So I would find it hard to push to anyone that isn't a cinema buff. So thinking similar to yourself, maybe a little bit lower, I'll go a 6.5. I think it'd be a hard sell to anyone that's not a cinema buff. But if you can convince them and they watch it, I think they'll like it. I think it's one of those movies that anyone that gives it a crack will probably be pretty happy with their choice. So this moves us to our last category, genre points. So this movie is a thriller. How good is it in terms of thrillers?
I'm going to go a 9.
9?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, break it down for me.
I just think it has bring a comedian, Jenny Tatum, and it has made him perform a villain role. So it's made him not typecast anymore. So he's done a performance of his career. It has done really awesome Easter eggs that I liked throughout the movies. Everything's not perfect about it, but for me, it's definitely the best thriller I've seen this year. And yeah, it's just awesome. Except for the sensitive stuff, it tells a really good thriller mystery that you're on the edge of your toes. It does get a little bit weird, but you know, you're wanting to know more, and the island's impressive, and yeah.
I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think it is a very good thriller. I'm not a fan of thrillers where like the answer is like, oh, it was supernatural or they had aliens or something. Not that they're bad. I just tend to not like that. I like it when it's more psychological and like there's something sinister at play, which this is what this movie does. But I do think that maybe, I don't know the answer, but there's something they could have did a little bit different that would have made it a bit better of a thriller. Because I think maybe it was the fact that you could kind of pick up on it early what was going on. Where I think to be a 10 out of 10 thriller, it needs to be right at the end. You go, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. I think of a movie like The Sixth Sense, for instance. Something where you're like, I didn't see that coming. Oh my God. So I think that's the only thing that holds it back from a 10, but an 8.5 in terms of the genre is pretty damn good. I would think, there's not many films I give a 10 out of 10 for genre. So let's tally these up. What do you reckon your score is going to be around, Jacob?
Around the 70%.
So we got an 8, we got a 9, we got a 7, we got a 9.5, a 10, a 5, a 7, a 6, a 7, and a 9, which gives you a 77.5. Do you reckon mine will be higher or lower?
I think the 6s heard it, but you did give it a 4 for its ending. So
I reckon mine will be lower, but I actually think I liked the movie more than you did.
Yeah.
Which I've said this before. I don't always think that scores reflect how good a movie is. Scores are being critical, but at the end of the day, what you feel about a movie is completely different. I think of movies that I really love that if I had to score them, they would be horrible, but that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy them. Some movies are just guilty pleasures, or some are just, you like them for who knows what reason, but they technically do no good. 9.5, a 4, a 6, 9.5, a 6.5, and an 8.5, which gives it a 76.5. So 1% less than you. Interesting. I think they're fair scores. I think I gave it on my letterbox a 4 out of 5, which would be 75%. So yeah, it's pretty much, is that 75? No, it'd be 80%. So yeah, that's about where I thought it would be. So very interesting. Where does that stack up to some of the other movies this year? What other movies? What movies have we given more than 70? So more than 80%.
I know Iron Claw and a couple of others.
Okay. Maybe we should look back at our videos and see what scores we have and see what movies see if they reflect our end of year like rankings. Okay, so Let's have a quick breather. That was a long segment. So we talked about the Blink Twice Blink Twice review. We gave it our scores. We've mentioned a few times so far about Beetlejuice.
Yes.
And then we talked about, you brought up before about this legacy sequel.
Mm.
So this idea of, sequels that come out a long time after the original. Beetlejuice. See, I watched it last week before seeing the second one, and I don't actually know if I had ever seen the first one, because if you'd asked me what Beetlejuice was about, I would not have described it as to what I saw.
Mm.
So maybe I saw it so long ago that I forgot, or maybe it's something I never saw. I just had seen Beetlejuice at Movie World and went on the ride that had Beetlejuice on it and just thought I'd seen Beetlejuice and I didn't. But my quick perception is I liked the second movie a lot more than the first one, which might upset a lot of people. My auntie, she asked me what I thought of it because she hadn't seen the second one yet, but she really liked the first one. And I said, I think it's better. And she's like, oh, that's a big call. Like, the first movie is one of the greatest movies of all time. And I was like, okay, like maybe people that grew up in the 80s that saw Beetlejuice liked it a lot more than you and I that have seen it after the fact.
Mm.
So did you like the first one or the second one better?
Second one, definitely. The first one, I got to be brutally honest, does not hold up. And I was bored all throughout the movie. And I know you could argue, well, I didn't grow up with the first Beetlejuice and things like that. Well, some legendary movies hold up for now, like the first Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back. Like, there's just legendary films that still hold up. Beetlejuice does not.
I think for the time and place it came out, a lot of 80s movies were a bit silly. I think it was fun, but it just... I don't know. It just typified kind of a movie of its genre at that time frame, where it was like, something missing here. This is a little bit corny. It's a bit silly, but I don't know. It did create an iconic character as in Beetlejuice. So I'm glad that they brought out a second one, even though it was 35 years later. So back to the original thought was this idea of legacy sequels and when is the best time to bring it out.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion? Do you think Beetlejuice coming out 35 years later was the perfect time to bring it out, a bad choice, or did it need a sequel?
Well, there's a lot of layers in that, because the positive thing is that hopefully the second one does well and we get a third one. But playing devil's advocate, you could argue the first one didn't even warrant a second one. So part of me is like, I actually preferred the second one, and I actually think the third one, I actually hope for the third one they make it more about like the underworld and kind of centered around that, because I actually find that a lot more interesting than the up top. But yes, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think the timing was good. I'm actually a big fan of them bringing out sequels to movies many, many years after, because then instead of building on the fact of, oh, let's add another villain, let's just keep this train rolling, you've let things simmer, time's passed, and you go, hey, let's play on the nostalgia. So I think of movies like this. For instance, this year we got Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. That was, now Eddie Murphy's a bit older. They could play on the jokes of that and the nostalgia instead of just keep making, sequel after sequel, like year after year, where it's like, oh, when's this money train ever going to end? Instead of let people sit on there. So I do like that. In saying that, it seems to be the go with movies that we're running out of original ideas. And when someone does come with an original idea, people put it down and say, oh, it's rubbish. I would rather just seen another sequel. So we're in that time where they go, let's do remakes, let's do legacy sequels, let's do spin-offs. And it just seems to be the going thing. So I think out of a lot of legacy sequels I've seen lately, I think that Beetlejuice was a really good one, better than the first, a lot of fun. I don't actually want to see a third one. I think a third one is then we're moving back to this cash grab idea of going, oh, well, we've rebooted it and it got a bit of fame. let's chuck in another one and see if we can make more money. It's like, well, what is the next storyline about? Like, how many times can you require Beetlejuice to be intervene? Like, and do we really need to see the daughter or Winona Ryder like go back to the underworld? Like, where does the next storyline go? Unless he rehaunts another family, which again, I wouldn't have minded if this movie didn't have the original cast and it just had Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. I would have been happy with that too, because that's kind of just him doing what he does, Beetlejuice. So, but yeah, I personally think it was a perfect timing. I think any sooner, it wouldn't have been nostalgic enough for those that lived through it, and it wouldn't have attracted new people, because I don't think it would. I don't think this movie attracts new fans. I think it brings in previous fans, but I think it's probably the right kind of gap for that.
So what do you think with other legacy sequels? What's a good time range for legendary sequels to come out? Is it 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 5 years? What's a good time frame to wait?
I think it depends on the cast age. So, for instance, they're talking about they're maybe going to make a sequel to The Goonies. I've never seen The Goonies, and I know it's a cult classic. People love The Goonies. Have you seen The Goonies?
No.
So, from what I've been told, it seems like kids going on an epic adventure and involving pirates and a character with a deformed face that people think is maybe a bit, cult, like inappropriate because it might resemble someone with a disability. But The Goonies is a cult favorite. Obviously, it had a lot of people that have now grown up to be quite successful. The one that comes to mind first is Frodo, Samwise Gamgee.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So he was in it when he was a kid. And obviously grew up to, is it something Edmund? I can't think of his name, but yeah, you'd recognize him from Sam. So they where I'm going with this is I think it depends on the cast. So they're thinking about making a sequel to that, but they're now at an age where they have kids. So the sequel could surround their kids going on an epic adventure. That's cool. You think of Beverly Hills Cop. If they were to bring out another Rush Hour film, things like that, it kind of works because you're like, you got the cops going, oh, I'm too old for this. I can't do this anymore. And that's fine. I find that funny. What was it? Like Bad Boys is another one.
Yeah.
I think they waited a really good time for Bad Boys to work because you go, oh, they can play on these jokes than being old. So it's got to do with that. Or, yeah, you get to where the main characters can now have kids. So I think with Beetlejuice, we've got Winona Ryder, who was the kid in that film. 35 years later, she now has a teenager herself. It works. So it's got to be a time that makes sense. If Beetlejuice came out 10 years after the original, Winona Ryder wouldn't have a daughter, and where would the movie go? I guess based upon the second one, she's a spirit medium. She has like a ghost hunter show. I guess it would have to be her creating that show. That would be the only thing that could work based upon what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
If you bring out Bad Boys with not a big enough gap in it, do you start to go, well, these guys are just kind of semi-elderly cops? Like, what jokes do you go with? You could go like, they wouldn't still be cops. This isn't funny. But if you wait a little bit longer till they're really too old, you go, oh, well, now it's funny. So it's like long answer short, there is no correct answer, but it's got to make sense. If you just bringing it out for the sake of it, doesn't work. So it's got to be straight after or enough gap that it fits in.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that makes sense. I think sometimes it's better to wait for when it makes sense for reasons. If you make too many sequels just for the sake of it, it loses its charm and enjoyment factor.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people out there that hate the idea of when they do bring out a sequel many years later to a movie that was a classic. Because they go, well, why'd you have to ruin this for us? Or why did you bring in the chance of ruining this? The first one was perfect. Don't bring out another. I don't mind it because one, you don't have to watch it, and two, if it's a success, it's like, I'm so glad they redid that. So, for instance, a movie that comes to mind that I'm looking forward to is Happy Gilmore 2.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people don't want to see a second one because they go, Happy Gilmore was so so good. But I want to see it because I love the idea of them I'd rather see a sequel than a remake. So I'm glad to see this and them expand on this world. And if it's a failure, so be it. It doesn't ruin the original one for me. It's fine. So I'm a big fan of legacy sequels more so than just going, let's pump out another one. Like, we've made Fast and the Furious every year for the last 12 years. Let's make a 13th. Like, that's just, I don't like that. I'd rather you pause, you wait, and you bring back classics. And there's, you could go through the 80s and there's probably so many movies that probably warrant another version. I love the Mighty Ducks. It had three movies of the Mighty Ducks when it first came out. And then they brought out the TV show, which I was so excited for because it is, in essence, a legacy sequel, except for it's in a TV form. It didn't ruin the originals, and I'm glad it came out. Was it good? No, but I was excited at least they had a crack. So I do love it when you bring back something that is now became a classic, and I don't mind it. I don't think it ruins it. So, yeah.
That's a good point. Is it better to do it in movie form or TV show format?
I like the TV show format. I think if you've had a successful show to bring out, maybe this is a funny way to think about it. I think a sequel has to be a direct sequel with the original cast. I think if you go TV form, spin-off. I know that's not always going to work, but as a rule of thumb, for me, I think that would work well. So you go, for instance, the Mighty Ducks show, ignoring the fact that Coach Bombay is in it, which is, he doesn't have...
Well, he's not in season 2.
Yeah, he's not in season 2, but if he was or wasn't in it, it doesn't matter. The fact is, it's a sequel, but it's kind of a spin-off. It's within the world of the Mighty Ducks. So I like that. I think that's cool. Where you go, if you're going to make a movie, I think you have to have original cast, either like reprising their roles and being elderly, or having kids that are now kind of following the same footpath. So movie for sequel, TV show for spin-off. I like that format. Like we think of, I know it wasn't popular and didn't get renewed, but Turner and Hooch.
Oh, yes.
That was, well, I guess that's a remake. So they remade it, but they, instead of going a remake movie, we go remake spin-off, remake TV show. So I think if you're going to redo something, it then also needs to be a different format. So if you want to turn a movie, if it's a movie, make it a show. If it's a show, make it a movie. Because then that way you don't ruin the reputation because it's a different format. Oh, no, that kind of sits well with me. I don't know if others agree. Anything more about this legacy sequel and timing? Oh, look at my chip. It is floating.
It's floating.
Anything more to the legacy sequel, or you want to move on to your other topic?
I guess if you had your ideal, what would you like? Any legacy movie, what would you like to see?
Any legacy movie. So we're talking sequel or a legacy remake?
It can be whatever you want it to be.
I kind of would like to see, I'm a big fan of Scream, maybe remake the first Scream with a new cast. That could kind of be cool. But whether or not it would be, would that just muck up the formula now that they've got going with the sequels? So they probably would never ever do that. But legacy sequel. Well, probably at the top of the list, I'm thinking would be Happy Gilmore, which is going to happen. So that's pretty cool. Or other movies that I liked as a kid. Because, like, obviously, for it to be a legacy, it needs to be something that was been out a while ago. See, that wouldn't. I was thinking like comedies that I've liked, it wouldn't work. I really think it needs to be a movie that had kids in it that are now grown up for it to really work. So I wouldn't hate another Mighty Ducks movie with the original cast. So maybe them with their kids, or I'm going to go with Happy Gilmore or another sequel to the Mighty Ducks.
Mm.
What about yourself?
I'm gonna go Baby's Day Out.
Baby's Day Out. I haven't seen that movie in a very long time. I might be getting confused with it. Is this the movie? The baby like goes on a like escapes essentially. Is that right?
Mhm.
This isn't the one with the gorilla. Oh, there is a gorilla in this movie.
No.
No. Okay, tell me about it. Then.
So basically, Baby's Day Out, 3 males want to try and get the baby. I can't remember what reason, and then basically the baby gets away from them, and I think that could work.
Okay. I wouldn't mind seeing. I know they've tried it, and recently they had another one, like another Home Alone.
Oh yeah.
I feel like all the sequels they did that didn't have Macaulay Culkin were rubbish, but maybe it'd be. I gotta take it back. I want my legacy sequel is a Home Alone where Macaulay Culkin is the parent and he leaves his kid at home.
Okay.
I don't know. It'd be stupid because he's been left alone before, but it happens with his kid. But maybe find a different way. You know, like they don't necessarily get left behind, but they like end up on different flights, or maybe he is meant to like, you know, pick his kid up or something, and then he can't make it home. So then the kid becomes home alone because he's the one that can't. He doesn't leave them behind, but he can't make it there. I don't know. Find some way of like working that out. So he's still the one that kind of is left alone. But yeah. But the thing that makes Home Alone 1 work is they didn't have mobile phones. So like the phone lines go down because of the storm, and they can't call the kid. Where like today, if that happened, they'd like call up and be like, hey, I'll be home soon. But find a way to make it work. Maybe that's one of those films that just can't ever work because technology would make the film not possible. But I would like to see they could find another way to redo that. Or now I'm on a tangent of Christmas movies. A sequel to The Elf.
Okay.
Like, you know, that's one of my favorite movies of all time. Easily my maybe second favorite Christmas movie. A sequel to that would be cool. Where, you know, like because that movie does end with them having kids, having a kid. So find some other way where they've got to save Christmas or go back to the human world. That could be cool. Obviously, like Will Ferrell is so funny, he would find a way to make it work. Or they did make a sequel to Jingle All the Way, but maybe a remake of Jingle All the Way would be cool. But I don't know, who would you get to be Arnold Schwarzenegger in this film? Maybe like John Cena. Please not The Rock. The Rock would ruin it. I think maybe John Cena or Dave Bautista could be funny.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And like, I guess it could still work because that film is about trying to get something that's sold out, which is not unrealistic in today's day and age, that things could still be sold out, and then you've got to go on this whole thing trying to find it. So it could like involve trying to do online shopping and going from place to place and click and collects, and I don't know, it might be fun. A remake of that and a sequel to Home Alone. They're my answers. I've changed it.
Okay.
But yeah, Baby's Day Out. I do remember seeing that. Does it have like Billy Crystal or something in it, or?
Might do.
Yeah. A good example of like a legacy sequel spin-off that I really like is Monsters at Work.
Okay.
I love the fact that those Monsters Inc. and Monsters University were movies, and then many years later they make a spin-off sequel. It directly follows on from the first movie, but it involves new characters with the main characters in it, but they're not the main characters. But it's a series. I really like that. I love this. I love the spin-off being a TV show and then having the original cast drop in and out of it. Like, as much as How I Met Your Father wasn't liked and it got booted for a second season, I thought it was funny. So I think I like a sequels. I like a spin-off. I think so. I'm a big fan of spin-off. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another tangent. So we wanted to talk about weekly versus bingeable. So this kind of went back to my original question at the start where I asked what you thought of Bad Monkey. Were you enjoying it coming out weekly? I said I like the idea of weekly because then I don't feel like I'm getting behind. Like, I should be binging this show. Or I guess when I have free will to watch you know, you get given 10 episodes and you're like, they're already out. You're like, I can watch one here and I'll watch one there. And I end up not watching them. Opposed to binging them, it has the opposite effect to me. Having the ability to binge something caused me to go, oh, I'll just watch it tomorrow. Like, it's no right. Where like weekly, it's like, I got 7 days to watch this. I need to watch this. Otherwise, I'm behind. I like that. That's my reasoning. Tell me what your preference is, weekly or bingeable.
Well, it depends on the show, but ideally I prefer binging, but it all depends on the show. If the show is engaging, I look forward to it coming out weekly, but ideally binging.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a benefit to both, but something about the weekly show just goes, it puts a timeline on, I need to watch this, where having the ability to watch it all kind of causes me to go, oh, I'll get around to doing it. It's like that washing that you leave in the basket that you won't put away. It's like, oh, I'm in no rush to get it. I'll do it when I need to do it. But there is no need to do it once it's bingeable. But when it's weekly, it's like, I know you could do the same thing. You could fall behind, but I don't want to. Where if I'm presented to it all at once, I'm like, well, I'm already behind. Someone's already watched all of this. Where if weekly, it's like, well, or you can also look forward to it. I think it has a bit. I enjoy it a lot better. What's an example of a show that you are glad that comes out weekly?
Probably Slow Horses.
Yeah. What? Sorry, go. What do you like about that coming out weekly?
That the episodes are long, so I feel like I'm getting the investment. It has a pretty engaging story, and it ends on a cliffhanger, so I'm looking forward to the following week.
And yeah, being so long, you probably wouldn't binge it. It's unlikely to watch back-to-back hour-long episodes.
They're around 40 to 50 minutes.
Okay. But yeah, it's a hard slog to watch too many of those in a row. Trying to think of the last show. The only shows that I can really enjoy watching back-to-back episodes are sitcoms. I find a sitcom very easy to watch back-to-back. I do remember I watched not The Walking Dead. I watched The Breaking Bad pretty quickly. I binged a lot episode after episode with that. But I found that really enjoyable and engaging at the time. But I think it's a show I'll never watch again. I don't know why. It's one of my favorite shows I've seen, but I don't think I'd ever watch it again because it is a long slog. Which is, you know, the sad thing about when you bring out a product that's so good. Yeah, people may not want to ruin it, or they go, "There's too much." Like, who honestly has rewatched The Walking Dead? Like, that's wild. Anyone that's finished The Walking Dead and gone back and watched it, I would like to know where you get so much free time, because that is a slog and a half. So yeah, I think it's hard to. Where I used to love watching that show week to week when it came out. I was like, oh yeah, I even think I think the episode used to come out on a Monday at like midday, and I'd actually even like make sure I had nothing on Monday at midday to watch it live. Like, it was such a big deal. Where long gone are those days of people watching things weekly, and you've got people like yourself where you want to watch the Penguin show, but because of the cost of streaming services, you're like, I'll wait for every episode to come out and then I'll binge it, because it's just streaming can be really expensive, and there's so much content out there. So some people love the idea of binge watching, and long gone are the days of waiting for things to come out monthly or weekly. Yeah.
So you have no plans of watching the Walking Dead spin-off shows? Like, there's Daryl has a spin-off show that got renewed for season 2. Morgan and the other female have a spin-off show.
Oh yeah, they're talking about the New York one, the City of the Dead.
Yeah,
with Negan and Sally. I don't know, can't even know. I might. I just haven't finished The Walking Dead. I was obsessed with it up to maybe season 8, and then something happened, just got behind, and then we just couldn't catch back up. And now I look at it, I'm like, I'm going to need to invest 30, 40 hours, I think, to finish it. And it's like, that's a long slog. You know, I feel like I probably watch 2 hours of TV a week. So, you know, that could take me half a year to do that, to get through all that. So probably take longer in reality. So I don't know. I want to. I just, the task, the mountain just looks a bit too high at the moment for me to. Do I want to attempt?
Looks like Everest.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to start the journey only to get halfway and then fall all the way back down. So I don't know. I would like to. There's a lot of new content out there that's more appealing.
So I was thinking we would, I would say a TV show to you, and then you would say a TV show, and then we go, is the TV show better bingeable or weekly? So I'll go first and go, Bashoom Innocence. Do you think that's better binging or weekly?
I reckon I actually wouldn't mind binging that because there wasn't a whole lot of episodes and they weren't too long. So I think I was, but did I like the show because of the suspense that built up of waiting a whole week? Like, it's really hard to know. I think I'll go bingeable. I think that's a show that I think most people would like to be able to find out the answer next, because it is a cliffhanger week after week. So I'm going to go with that show is probably the better experience is bingeable.
Okay.
What do you think about Presumed Innocent?
I think it's kind of a both answer, but I think it's a better bingeable show.
Yeah, I think it is a show that you could watch one after another. I'm going to lean towards with most of these. If I don't think I could physically watch episodes back to back, then it's not bingeable. And I think I could watch that show back to back.
Yeah.
So I think it's bingeable. Okay, I'm going to go for you, Friends.
Friends, I believe that's bingeable because each episode is only 20 minutes and it's very light-hearted and it's a comedy, so bingeable.
I wonder what it would have been like waiting weekly for that to come out. At the time, that was the norm, so no one would have thought anything of it. But, you know, you wonder now if maybe that's why most sitcoms don't have that mega stardom anymore, because you don't have to wait weekly. Where it was weekly, the ratings went through the roof whenever Friends had come on. So, you know, it would have been all about ads. Like Friends, even though it was a 20-minute show, it probably went for an hour because they probably had that many ads on at one point. Like, it may not have been, it may have been a 30-minute show, but you'd think they could have put on so many ads because they're like, people are stuck here to watch this for the next hour, and they're damn well going to see, you know, KFC and Hungry Jack's ads if we want them to. Yeah. So it would have been, I think it would have been interesting. So if Friends was to come out nowadays, I don't know if it would have been as popular.
I don't think so.
Yeah, if that was a show that, if free-to-air TV didn't exist and it went straight to streaming, I think it would have been a hard sell, because you would have been like, oh, because like in essence, it's like, what's the premise of Friends? Oh, it's about friends.
Yeah.
So you would have been like, maybe not. So that was probably lucky to come out at that time. But now that it's out, it's bingeable. It's quickly bingeable. Like, I think you could watch probably all 10 seasons in a month. Yeah. Like pretty easily. There's not too many shows that I think you could do that. Yeah. So I think it's bingeable. Your turn.
Breaking Bad.
Been a while since I watched it. I think that's probably a weekly thing.
I agree with that.
I think it's requires a little bit of thinking. I think it needs to build up a bit of suspense. I think if you can just whiz through it, you probably don't get the same experience as if you were to stop and talk about it. But you'd need to be watching it weekly live. You know, like if you were to now, someone said, hey, you can only watch one episode of this a week. Yeah. Until you finish it. You'd finish the episode and you'd be like, well, who can I talk about this with? Everyone I go and talk to will already know what happens. So this is crap. So it's got to be weekly at the time that it comes out. So, but at the time, Breaking Bad, I didn't get to see it weekly. I actually did binge it. I think when I started watching it, the whole thing may have been already finished, if not in the last season. But it's the preference would be watching it as it unfolds live, opposed to binging it.
And of course, going through that episode when they're dealing with the fly, what was one of the most boringest episode of TV that I've seen. That's all they were doing for 50 minutes.
Yeah, it's a very strange one. I think binging it now, you can just kind of skip it, or if you don't want to skip it, you watch it and then you go, okay, well now the next one's good. Hope the next one's good. But if you waited all week and then you cop that episode and you have to wait another week, it would have created a lot of enemy. I think a lot of people being like, this show, I'm not watching it anymore.
Because of that episode.
I think so, especially if you waited all week for it and that's what you cop. I think you would have been very disappointed. Another show, Game of Thrones.
I would say weekly.
I have no experience with Game of Thrones, but I feel like it, from memory, a lot of my friends would get together and have watch parties of Game of Thrones, which I don't know any other show that had that impact on people.
Yeah, it was a gathering sort of show. Nothing's been like it.
But now I don't know if it's a show you could really sell to people, because most people you speak to, they talk about the ending and how they didn't like it.
Yeah.
So it's hard to try and, how do you convince people to watch a show where you're like, yeah, the ending's no good. Like, well, why am I going to invest all this time into a poor ending? Where it's like, I think Breaking Bad had a really good ending. Some people might argue about that, but I think it was an ending you're satisfied with. But yeah, Game of Thrones, having not seen it, the fact I hear so many people talk about the poor ending makes you think, well, maybe there must be a reason to this. Okay, your turn.
Blackbird,
limited series,
murder mystery or thriller.
I think I would have liked to have seen it bingeable. Weekly was fine and I looked forward to it, but I think my preference would be binging it, because you know it's one and done.
Yeah.
You already know on the table that this is 8 episodes, 6 episodes, whatever, to binge through, opposed to someone saying, here's like 100 episodes of Walking Dead, good luck. They go, here's whatever, here's 6 hours of TV. You go, I could knock that out. I could knock that out 6 hours in a row if I had to, especially if you're really engaged with it. So I think bingeable.
Yeah. But
at the time, I copped it weekly and I enjoyed it too. So, but if I had not already seen it and someone said, hey, there's this episode, there's this show, I'd probably binge it. So I think bingeable would be a better experience. What do you think?
Bingeable.
Yeah. Reasoning?
I just think the mystery keeps you engaged and you want to find out the mystery behind it.
And the episodes weren't long. I don't think they were long, or they didn't feel long, and you wanted to know what happens next. So I think that's a big key part to it. TV show. Stargate SG-1?
Probably episode weekly.
And what's the reasoning for that?
Because it's a 40-50 minute show. Each adventure feels quite unique and you want to experience that. Each episode kind of feels like its own like storyline. Of course, there's a storyline throughout the show, but it's not like it's more of a weekly experience.
Okay. I obviously haven't seen any of it, but I know it's one of your favorite shows. So I'm intrigued. So, but now that you have seen it, do you find it easy to binge?
Yes.
Okay. So it's funny when you watch things the first time, you might need to watch it weekly to take it all in, but once you've seen it, you can just smash it out. So
yeah.
Any more?
One more. Loki.
I think weekly.
Yeah.
I think I would struggle to watch back-to-back episodes of Loki. Not because it's not interesting. I just think it. I think I'd probably not. I'd lose concentration halfway through the second episode, so it wouldn't get the full attention it deserves. So a weekly show, that one.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Weekly.
Reasoning?
I just think each episode feels like its own movie and its own spectacle, except for the train episode in season 1, but everything else feels spectacular.
You didn't like the train episode?
Yeah, no.
I reckon that's probably my favorite.
Not the first episode?
Oh, the first episode was really good, but I actually liked that train episode and being on the planet that was exploding. I thought it was kind of cool.
Mm.
But yeah, very interesting. Okay, I'll give you one more. Frasier.
Frasier, bingeable.
Yeah,
Same as Friends, yeah.
I guess it'd be the smaller episodes and the fact that they're funny.
Yeah.
How many episodes of that do you reckon you could watch in a row for kind of zoning out?
Maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, so it's just over an hour, so that's fair. Yeah, I've only ever seen bits and pieces of it, but yeah, I think sitcoms are probably the easiest ones to binge.
Yeah.
Do you think if you had to watch it weekly, you wouldn't like it as much? Like, did you watch it as it came out weekly, or you binged it after the fact?
With the new reboot, I watched it weekly at the start and then binged it.
What about the original?
I binged it.
Okay, I wasn't, because I don't know when Frasier came out, whether you watched it live or whether it's something you watched later on.
Later on, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you would have liked it as much if you had to wait week to week, or the fact that, like, sometimes with comedies it's like, oh, you keep it going, like you're like, I'm ready for the next episode, but sometimes when something comes out weekly, you might go, oh yeah, last week was kind of funny, I'll get around to the next one. But because you can just go bang, 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 does it make it funnier and more appealing?
Probably makes it more appealing to be able to binge watch it.
It's an interesting thought. Okay, we'll move on from that. Kind of wrapping it up now. So anything coming out that you're going to go see in the next week or two that you're really looking forward to?
Probably Wild Robot.
Yeah, I would like to see that, and I would also like to see Transformers 1.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be lucky enough to see both of them this week, but I will try my best. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We're less than a month away from Joker.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned before, we've got the Penguin series coming out on Friday.
Yeah.
Which is pretty damn cool.
Are you going to be watching it?
I will give it a watch on Friday. So I will be watching it weekly opposed to binging it because I'm very excited. I know you are too, but it just makes sense for you to wait and use your free trial and watch it all in one hit. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I guess hope you all enjoyed the live stream. Also, comment down what's been your favorite thing for this month. And as always, thank you for watching and see you all next time. Bye-bye.